Many years went by, and despite some losing hope, Crisis Core finally gets its remaster at long last. How does it fare? Well, let's take a look. The game was always in the discussion for getting a remaster, but for a long time it seemed it was not possible. The original came out during the mid-2000s, which was when the FF7 compilation was taking place. Among this, we had Advent Children, Dirge of Cerberus, Before Crisis, and of course Crisis Core. They all generally had mixed receptions, with some enjoying, and some just not liking it at all. I actually am one who will defend Advent Children, even though yes, it does have some flaws. I enjoy it for what it is. After all these came out, we then got Crisis Core, which at the time was only on the PSP. Funny story, I actually got a PSP just for this game, which is amazing looking back on it. The director also was Hajime Tabata, who is most known for directing Final Fantasy Type 0 and Final Fantasy 15. The original, though, did have its struggles at the time, as they wanted to add more scenes in the game, but were limited due to the famous UMDs. I gotta say, I am glad we are long over those. Despite this, and despite overall feelings on the compilation, many consider Crisis Core to be the standout at the time. People wanted to connect with Zack more, since in the original FF7, he really did not have that many scenes despite his role in the story. So it was a win-win, as fans finally got to have more Zack, and its entire game with him as the protag. One thing, however, came up which kept fans wondering if this was the reason why Crisis Core was not coming back. This, of course, being the casting of Gak. At the time, Square Enix was really trying to get as much attention as they could, so they got a rock star in the game as one of the characters, this being Genesis. Genesis himself is very, let's just say, polarizing, but the one thing that had people worried was, because he was based off of someone in real life, this might make it a legal nightmare should they try to bring the game back. This was a rumor that persisted for many years until the remaster was announced in June 2022. The dev team took the opportunity to shut down that rumor. But this of course leads to the remaster finally being announced along with FF7 Rebirth at this 25th anniversary event. Fans were overjoyed that the game could finally be experienced on a modern platform with some new changes and adjustments, some of them being full voice acting for all dialogue, graphics being converted to HD, and a newly arranged soundtrack. The story, however, is still the same, so if one was worried that there would be changes for that due to the remake project, well, now you don't have to worry. There are of course other adjustments, but we will get to those when we talk about the gameplay side of things. Let's move on to the game itself. The game itself is an action role-playing game set in its own universe, so you do not have to worry about playing the other games before jumping into this one. While there will be no story spoilers in this video, it is noteworthy that it is a prequel to FF7 where events that are shown here technically were shown off there as well. If I had to give a recommendation, I would say if you have interest in playing the original FF7, play that first, then Crisis Core. However, even then, if you want to play this first, by all means go for it. The story of the game starts out with you playing as Zack Fair, a second-class soldier of Shinra who wants to become a first-class someday. His mentor Angeal, who is a first-class, is along with him and wants to help him get there. Along the way, Zack will also meet the director of Shinra, Lazard, who will give him assignments. You also might meet some new and familiar faces along the journey. Their main goal is to find the deserted first-class soldier Genesis while also learn of any other issues that appear. As mentioned before, the story is the same, but one thing that did change is the voice cast on the English side. I will not deny I was worried about the voice cast change since for a long time I was used to the old cast, like Steve Burton, George Newbern, and Rick Gomez. Rick Gomez as Zack was one of the things that honestly carried the PSP version. His performance helped out a lot. Granted, the change in voice cast we already knew was going to happen, since FF7 Remake was the first one to do so. Imagine my reaction when I played through this remaster and thinking to myself, you know, this worked out pretty well. The cast does a good job, but what struck me most was the direction they were given. They essentially took the lines from the PSP version and tried their best to match that. Voice direction in Square games, especially in the mid-2000s, was, well, it had its moments, but them recreating it here worked for me. This will vary between player to player, but overall, I thought it was okay. I do prefer the direction they did for the remake performances, but them trying to match the PSP for this was fine. Now onto the gameplay of Crisis Core Reunion, and we got a bit here since they went in and changed the battle system from the original version. With this game, you only play as Zack, so you won't have to worry about other party members. The game is full action-based, which means if one went from remake to this, it might be wild seeing no ATB bars. When it comes to basic combat, you have a normal combo that you can use. This can do multiple hits and it's fast to use. A great improvement since the combo in the original Crisis Core was slow. In general, the game itself is faster during combat. I will not deny that sometimes it can feel overwhelming, but after a while, it does work out pretty good. Along with normal attacking, you can also use AP to do guarding and dodging. Guarding is used for reducing damage taken by enemies, and dodging is used for getting out of the way of an attack. I am glad they made the dodging better here because in the original, that dodge was not good to use. Here it's fast and you can get back to attacking right away. Both of these moves use AP, but considering how the overall combat system is, you don't have to worry. One special note regarding physical attacking in the game is, if you use them while behind an enemy, you are always going to get a critical hit. So an easy strat from the start of the game is getting behind and attacking for extra damage. Then again, you still want to watch out in case the enemy hits you or turns around. Some enemies can just teleport away also, so you have to observe carefully when attacking. But again, with the dodging being good this time, you can get away. You can also use magic attacks in the game. Throughout, you'll be getting materia, and with equipping it, you can use it as long as you have MP. You have a variety of spells to use in the game. You have healing magic, which can be used for restoring health. You have offensive magic like fire, ice, thunder, and etc. There is some offensive magic which are non-elemental, but my favorite is electrocute, which just cleans everything up. As long as it's not immune, of course. But it is actually wild how you can just clear through enemies and health bars really fast. One thing with using magic is you have to stand still for a second in order to use it. So be sure to use it with good timing as enemies can hit you. Another type of attacking you can do is by using command materia. Command materia offers another way of attacks. These have special animations when using them. Ones like jump and assault twister stand out. Just like with dodging and guarding, these attacks also use AP, and depending on how much AP the move can cost, you might see yourself going through your AP fast. Magic you at least don't have to worry about as much since the cost will be lower, but these can literally take up 99 AP each time you use it. But with the proper time, these moves can easily reach the max damage limit. There are ones that don't take up much, like Steel, however. I mentioned it before, but when it comes to restoring yourself in combat, there is magic, but say you have no MP? Well, this is where items come in. Items can be used at any time, and you can cycle through which one you want to use. This system is nice as it lets you use one almost right away, so if you need to restore something, it's quick. It speaks volumes also that items do a better job than magic at some points due to it not taking up a materia slot. The items themselves are nothing out of the ordinary and gives descriptions on them in the menus. With this version of the game, they also add in a few tiny things to help out with the flow. A big one is using moves to string in a combo. So you can use normal attacking, but once you are attacking, you can use a materia move in between for extra damage. This can be either a magic move or a physical move. It's great using the normal combo then tying it in with an assault twister. For magic ones, you can do the combo, then use a magic move to do a step back. This might not seem like much at first, but it could be used for dodging. The shortcuts they have for this version make this really good since you can use it right away instead of trying to switch to the move itself. But I can't finish up the combat portion without mentioning the famous DMW system, known as the Digital Mind Wave. This system is known for being the limit break system of the game while also giving buffs. On the top left corner, you will see a slot machine connected to Zack's health, magic, and AP. This rolls with a currency known as SP. SP is something you will gain throughout the game. Each time it rolls, it takes up 10 SP, but with how much fighting you will do, you never have to worry about it running out. When it rolls, it has images of characters and numbers. The numbers indicate what buffs you might get. This is actually pretty cool. And it's even better because it gives indicators for how long they will last. The main thing is the limit breaks themselves. During gameplay, you will see images, and when the two images on the sides match, you have a chance of getting a limit break. This happens when all three images match together. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's strange because you might get interrupted mid-fight for a tiny cutscene. All I'm going to say is the interruptions are a lot less frequent here. When all three images match, it stores the move so you can limit break at any time. Plus, when they all match, you get restored health, magic, and AP. Something that's neat is that you can actually get more than your max HP. This can help depending on your setup. At the start of the game, you only have 2 images for limit breaks, but as you progress, you will gain more. Some of these limit breaks, by the way, are pretty great, so when they happen, use them. Also, side note, but the interruptions are less frequent. You can also skip those scenes. Same goes for the limit breaks themselves. One other side to the limit breaks are actually the summons. Yes, during the game you can get some materia, and these are more limit breaks for use. When you get these ones, you get a special CGI movie. These are also skippable. It is funny though because you can tell that they still have the mid-2000s bass to them. Nothing bad, but just interesting. Something that is very strange to me, however, is that this is used for leveling up, but if you check the menus, there is no experience bar or numbers or anything. You only level up once you maybe defeat a certain amount of enemies and get a 777 on the DMW. Despite how inconvenient this sounds, it's not actually that bad. It's more of a strange choice to not give an indicator for how close you are to leveling up. They even mention this in the tutorial, which is just strange. To me, I find the entire system amusing because it's something that annoyed fans for years, which is fair because it would arrive at the worst times. It's just funny because the only reason why it was even put into the game was to have an element of slot machines. This, I am not kidding, is both a thing Katase and Nomura have stated in an interview at one point. I will say this, I do appreciate the DMW more now than before since the flow of gameplay is better, and I am amazed at how well they handled the images part. Also, something new is that some boss fights in the game have special attacks. This version actually lets you prevent them from using it. You have to attack them a lot while they're casting it, but if you do it, you'll prevent a lot of damage. That is the main combat for Crisis Core, but one last thing I wanted to add for this version is that I love the indicators. They basically took the 7 remake indicators and put them here, and it's so good. Now you can actually see how much health the enemy has or what they are weak against. I know this seems minor, but seriously, not having this before was rough. Just in general, the combat is so much nicer compared to the original. This is all of the combat parts, but what about before that? Here you have accessory slots and materia slots. Since you won't have to worry about weapons and armor, you only have to look out for these. Accessories in the game provide bonuses in battle like stat boosting or special effects. At the start you only have 2, but as you progress in the missions, you gain more. Materia, as described earlier, can do actions but also has a role with stat boosting. Throughout the game you will also notice that there is a system called materia fusion. It kind of reminds me of Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep's melding system a little. This goes with having 2 materias and an item, and fusion is done. But there is more than getting a new spell. This can be used to break the game. If you know what you're doing, these can legit just speed through fights. If you are mainly doing the story, you might not have to use it that much. But when it comes to the missions in the game, this is where the grind takes place. The good news is you can buy a lot of the needed items from the shops. Throughout there are shops you will unlock and all you have to do is find them, whether it's advancing the story or find them in chests. So if you need something for fusion, check the shops as they might have it. One thing to note with fusion, however, is if you are doing the larger fusions, they will eat up a lot of SP. So you might have to get a lot of SP beforehand, but again, this is mainly for the side stuff. Speaking of side stuff, the main side quests in the game are actually the missions. I mentioned it a few times before, but the missions are mainly where the side stuff takes place. You unlock more as you do them, but it's also tied with the main story. You can start a mission anytime you are at a save point. When it starts, you are taken to a new instance where the main objective is finding a certain enemy and taking it down. This is told by seeing the enemy already on screen while running around. So if you run around avoiding encounters to reach it, that is something you could do. In almost each mission, there is chests that you can get, and some of these are really good. Some legit hold the best equipment in the game, so always keep watch for them. A feature here is that they keep track of how many chests are on that mission. Thank God this is here, because again, it got really annoying trying to track on them manually. Now, one might be wondering how many missions are there? 20? 40? Maybe even 70? Well, I'm not sure how else to say it, but there is 300 missions in the game. Yes, you heard that right, 300. Even if one takes out the grinding element, you still have so much running around that even with the new dashing mechanic, some of these missions take forever. And honestly, this is where the game aged the worst for me. If you played the game, you might notice something strange. The backgrounds are reused a ton. This made a lot of sense on the PSP due to the hardware, but here in the remaster, it is very noticeable. And the worst part is, because there are so many missions, you will see the same hallways so much. So checking the map to see which parts you can even walk in will help out. This actually leads into another part which is also not aged the best, which is just natural progression. The main story also has the same hallways issue. Not as bad of course, but you really see the PSP fundamentals with this and the missions. I didn't mention the running around part earlier because that's a lot of the game. On occasion you will get minigames, but those are few and far between. What's worse is that there is no area where you can replay them, so it's just a one shot and that's it. One thing that is very good in this game is the music. The music from the original and in this version are really good. This version has all the tracks remixed, and even with them remixed, you still have original sound beats for most of them. At some points I even forgot they were remixed, but overall I enjoyed listening to the music while playing. The best part however is that they managed to keep the credits song. This was a legit worry of mine that maybe it would be replaced, but they actually kept it. So that's a huge win. Crisis Core Reunion you could say did very well. Bringing back a title like this was always going to be risky considering it was part of a compilation. As is, they did a great job. Yes, it's still a PSP game in certain parts. Yeah, the graphics are not as good as Remake, but considering what this is, they did great. I am very thankful for this reunion. To think I played the original back in 2010 and now I made a video on it. Still can't believe it, honestly. If you like this video and want to see more, check out the other videos on the channel. Thank you for watching and I'll see you on the next video.